What's going on, Jets fans? Welcome to the latest edition of Jets Latest, where you get the latest on the Jets, Jets. I'm your host, spitting statistician Dane Martinez, and today we continue to talk about some of the stuff we saw at OTAs and mini camps and how this team is really building a new brand, building a new culture under new GM Darren Muji and, of course, new head coach Aaron Glenn. And one of the key pieces of this new roster, of this new culture, of this new team is quarterback Justin Fields. And I've been continuing to talk about his development here on Jets Latest. We've been continuing to talk about how he's kind of gotten better every year in the NFL, from a 59% completion rate in his rookie season at Chicago all the way up to a above league average 66% completion rate last year in his starts with the Pittsburgh Steelers. We've seen how he's apparently got new mechanics, how he looks better throwing the ball, and a lot of reports are that in OTAs he looked good. Now remember, they're in shirts and t-shirts. I understand everything is Shangri-La at OTAs. But the other part that I really once again have to emphasize is that Justin Fields has an ability that not many quarterbacks in the NFL do. And that is really as his threat, as a dual threat quarterback, and his running ability, which is really an element that the Jets offense has quite frankly never had at the quarterback position. And this is evidence. Listen, he was wearing one of those kind of, next gen stat tracker vests out of practice recently, and he hit a top speed of 21.86 miles an hour. That is the fastest recorded in a Jets practice since they started tracking this in 2007. And it just gives me the opportunity to talk a little bit more about what Justin Fields and his rushing ability can do for this offense, because his ability as a dual threat running quarterback is truly elite in the NFL. Just last year, in just 6 starts, he ran for 231 yards. He ran for 5 touchdowns. Remember, that is a pace for potentially 14 rushing touchdowns. I mean, Jalen Hurts had 14 rushing touchdowns. Josh Allen had 12 rushing touchdowns. That's the kind of potential we are talking about. I talked about it with the league meetings, kind of keeping the tush push as a legal play in the NFL. I think that helps Justin Fields and this Jets offense. Justin Fields converted 11 of 12 tush pushes since he has been in the league. That is a clip better than Jalen Hurts with 92%. That is a clip better than Josh Allen, quite frankly, and he has done it outside of Hurts and Allen. He has done it the most in the NFL. His ability to run is literally near the top all time at the NFL. He ran for 1,142 yards back in 2022. That is the second most by a quarterback in NFL history. He is one of only 3 quarterbacks to ever run for 1,000 yards in a season. The other 2 were Michael Vick and Lamar Jackson, for goodness sakes, okay? He has 5 games in his career with over 100 rushing yards, all right? The only people who have more than that, again, are Michael Vick and Lamar Jackson. That is the upper echelon of dual threat running quarterbacks this league has ever seen. And quite frankly, I think it's also interesting to note that Aaron Glenn wanted to go out and get this guy. Potentially why? Because 3 of those 500-yard rushing games came against the Detroit Lions when Aaron Glenn was the defensive coordinator. He ran for 147 yards in 2022 against the Lions. In that season, the other game, he ran for 132 yards against Aaron Glenn and the Detroit Lions. He ran for 104 yards the next season in November against Aaron Glenn and the Detroit Lions. Fields is also the NFL record for rushing yards in a single game by a quarterback, running for 178 yards in a game against the Miami Dolphins. So I think this is a truly unique skill set that he brings here, and now going to be behind a better offensive line than he really has ever been before, okay? With the continued teaching and development, I really believe that Justin Fields' skill set is going to be an additive for this Jets offense, and reason to believe that he can bring being dynamic and have something that this Jets offense has not seen in a while. You know what else the Jets have not seen in a while? The ability to take the ball away and make plays in the secondary, okay? And one of the guys we are going to be relying on in order to make that change in terms of the turnover turnaround is going to be free agent safety Andre Cisco. Listen to what Aaron Glenn had to say about Cisco. This is a guy we signed from Jacksonville to be a safety for the green and white this year. We got him in free agency. Check out what Aaron Glenn had to say. He's a player that can get the ball back for you. He believes in team, and he's a guy when at Syracuse, he made a lot of plays on the ball. So those things I like about him, and if you watch him now, how he operates with his teammates, you can tell he is a true team guy. And I think that's only going to get better once we continue to coach him and once he understands the dynamics of everything we've got going. I'm happy that we got him. A little bit more on this. One of the things Aaron Glenn usually says, you saw it on kind of the YouTube show on the Jets offseason, is the characteristics he's looking for. He's looking for guys that are aggressive, that are violent, that are physical, that are versatile, that are intelligent. But one of the things Aaron Glenn always says are guys that ingratiate themselves to their teammates. And that's something you see he just said there about Cisco, right? That he believes in team. He is a true team guy. He also talked about making a ton of plays at Syracuse, and he did. At Syracuse, Cisco had 13 picks in 3 seasons there. His 13 interceptions at Syracuse are tied for 4th all time for the Orange. He is known to have good acceleration, known to have good ball skills. He had 8 interceptions in his 4 seasons with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I said that is a skill set that is going to be needed on this Jets defense. The Jets did not get a ton of interceptions last year. They only had 2 interceptions last year through the first 13 weeks of the season. They only had 7 picks for the entire season. That was tied for 25th in the NFL. Meanwhile, Minnesota, who led the league, they had 24 picks. Imagine the difference between 24 picks and just 7, which is what the Jets had. So I think that is an important change that we are looking for. We've also talked about guys like Malachi Moore, who's going to be back there in the secondary, ball hawk. We've also talked about how the press man coverage that Aaron Glenn is going to bring over from Detroit, why guys like Sauce and Brandon Stevens, who are lanky, who are long, are going to be big fits for that. So hopefully we can turn the ball over a little bit more, get more takeaways, and Cisco is going to be a big part of that. Aaron Glenn seems to like what he sees, not only in that playmaking skill set, but again in the character and the teammate aspect of Cisco, which is certainly why he was targeted in free agency. Another guy who was targeted in free agency was Josh Meyers. Josh Meyers, when he was signed, remember, he was signed to a 1 year, just like a $3 million deal, $3.5 million. And when that happened, I said he was brought in as a depth interior offensive lineman, someone who could play center, someone who could play guard. I thought it was interesting that he was in fact Justin Fields' center at Ohio State. But coming out of OTAs, there are people who believe, there are reports that are saying that he could push Tippmann for the starting center role. Is there a battle for the center position here in the green and white? They're saying that, Meyers looked good. I personally think that Tippmann is going to be the center. Remember, Tippmann had a 73.4 PFF grade last year, 8th best among centers. He was a top 10 center as for PFF last year. But check out some of the stats here. Tippmann allowed 5 sacks last year, 23 pressures, and had a 97.9 PFF pass blocking grade. Meyers only allowed 1 sack last year, less than Tipton. He allowed 31 pressures, so slightly more, but his pass blocking grade from PFF was 96.9. Not a far cry for Tippmann's 97.9. Meyers also does have more experience than Tippmann. Meyers has 56 starts compared to Tippmann's 31, but Tippmann was a high draft pick out of Wisconsin, has performed well. I do think he is going to be ultimately the center. I do think it's great, though, that Meyers is showing himself that he could be well, because I also think he provides, again, that versatility. If anything happens to Simpson or AVT, they could put Meyers in at guard. They could move Tippmann to guard and put Meyers in at center. So I think that there is real benefits to this team and the fact that they have an interior versatile lineman that can plug and play a lot of spots, and that he is showing up and showing out in camp. I think Tippmann still will be the starting center, but it is great to see a guy like Meyers, who was signed in the offseason, showing himself to be able to be useful in a number of levels, right? So that'll do it for another edition here of Jets Latest. Remember, watch these videos, like the videos, subscribe to the Jets Latest channel, tell a Jets fan friend to tell a Jets fan friend. We will continue here on Jets Latest to talk about what we see in OTAs. We're going to have more OTAs coming up a little bit later in the week. There will obviously be some quotes, some insights, some analysis from that as well. But literally, Justin Fields' skill set is one like we have not seen much of at the NFL level. I'm talking Michael Vick. I'm talking Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts. Look at what that does for those offenses, respectively. And I think Fields is going to bring that to the green and white this year. And hopefully we're able to get some more takeaways in the back end under Aaron Glenn, who is definitely bringing a new culture and a new style of defense here. And we will talk about it on Jets Latest all week long. But if you want to hear more from me, the spitting statistician Dane Martinez, remember, I am also the host of the FTN Fantasy Show over on Sirius XM Channel 87, the Fantasy Channel. We do more than talk just Jets. We talk fantasy football in the NFL, fantasy baseball, NBA playoffs are going on. NHL playoffs are going on. It doesn't matter. FTN is a great website with a lot of great tools, data, simulations to get you the edge to be a better fantasy player and to be a better sports bettor. So check me out over there on the FTN Fantasy Show on Sirius XM. But if you're all about the green and white, good thing is I am too, and we will be back with another episode. Feel free to comment out there. I love engaging with you guys. Hit me up on Twitter or X at Spittin' Speeds as well. But one thing's for sure, we'll be back talking more about the latest on the JETS Jets in an upcoming edition of Jets Latest. That'll do it for me. For now, we out of here. Peace.